Hey there, welcome to another episode of the MJS Podcast, the show where I have chats with people that have impacted me one way or another in my life, personally, professionally, and I share those chats with you. I think it's the concept here is that I have gleaned a ton of knowledge and wisdom from these people. I built up some level of rapport with them for them to come on a podcast and chat with me. And my goal here is to share some of that with you and then also potentially introduce you to people that you could follow to continue that level of increased knowledge and wisdom that I've gotten, and maybe you get something out of it there as well. So that's the goal of the show. If you're new here, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking to Nick Saraev. Just a little bit of quick background too, if you're not familiar with how these go. I like to just take a couple minutes up front here to explain to you like how I found these people, what they mean to me, or how they've impacted me, and then we have the chat with them. And again, you know how it goes from there. So I found Nick when he was around 35-ish thousand subscribers on YouTube. He is a YouTuber. He has an automation agency. I myself, you don't know, had like a web design agency. So there was a lot of parallels there. And now he's up to like 100K. I mean, the dude is just spitting out content. I mean, over the last like year, but really specifically, I would say over the last like 6 months, like turned it up to just 11. There's new videos every day. He's scaling the content business of what he has. He put out I found him around the time before he started his second channel, like a daily updates channel, which is just ingenious, and I should implement that, but I haven't. And it's like he's just putting out content every single day. That channel is specifically tuned, and I'll put links and everything in the description, and we'll talk about it during the show. But just to give you an idea, it's a channel that every single day he goes on and just kind of like updates that smaller audience about what he's doing and answering questions, and it's a real good vibe. It's kind of like a live stream, but it's not live. And I think all of us, if we're content creators or anything like that, should definitely think about that, because there's a lot of people that would appreciate the struggle and understanding and like getting those questions answered. So I'm really interested. I was interested to talk to him about that and everything else. Just from the content perspective as well, I'm not sure how much we talk on it in this thing, but just from watching Nick's content, you would realize that this is a totally separate business. There's like the agency area, right, of automation or whatever your agency does. But then there's also the marketing side of it and how you're going to transition that. Nick what he's done is he's taken the time to create a really good business, a service-based business. But then he took all of that knowledge, not like many others, but he's very good at like looking and seeing what others are doing well, like the models that they're doing well. And the model is literally build a service-based business to X per month or whatever. And I'll get into that in a second. And then transitioning that into like the info product. And you hear him talk about that a lot, all the time. And it's taking the knowledge that you learned and the wisdom that you learned from your time in the trenches. While staying in the trenches, you sell and you educate people on how to do what you did. And one of the reasons that initially, there's some, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but sometimes there's people that I watch on YouTube and I immediately they just resonate with me, the way that they speak and their content, and the way that their vibe really. And immediately Nick was one of those people. I think it was a few reasons. One, he's young. We're about like the same age, late 20s. And it's just like to see somebody that young that's had that level of success, but also isn't like a jerk, isn't like a guru type like asshole, and also is like quite funny. I'm kind of hyping him up here. I hope he appreciates it. But my point is like it's very relatable. It's not like I'm better than you, here's what you should do. It's just like kind of like two peers talking that are on at different levels, and and that's one of the things that just really resonated with me as soon as I saw Nick's content. So that was one of the reasons that I just continued to consume, and then wanted to chat with him. A couple other little things here that I would say tidbits that Nick has made me realize as a business owner and just like as a professional is like, the first thing is like AI and automation are not rocket science, and they're very valuable. Like the way that he teaches, it's very good. If you watch any of his videos, you will see it immediately. It's very just step-by-step, pragmatic. It's also related to business cases, not related to some random thing that you might actually, it's something you're actually going to use and something that you could sell. That's a really big thing because there's a lot of I talk about this a lot, technician versus entrepreneur, like the spectrum. I think we go over in this episode as well. But like, where are you at on that? You have to, if you want to actually be the business owner, you have to make sure you're thinking of like not just how to do these technical things, but how to make money from them. Nick does that very well, and he helped me do that even better in my personal journey and the way that I look at these things. The next thing is that you have to. He made me realize that you have to like have achievements first, and then you also have to state those achievements, so people can give a shit about like your products that you're selling, because that's like where you get into like guru land. If you haven't had the achievements, if you say things that aren't exactly true, all that sort of stuff. Nick opens almost every one of his videos, at least in recent times, like he's leaning into the fact that he has made, I think it's at least $72,000 a month. Like he's scaled his agency up to that level, right? And he's making like a bunch more now from the info products like that. Some people see that and they're like, "Oh, that's some bullshit. I don't want to hear how much money you make." But it is a hook, but it's also like real. If you are a business owner and you're watching the content, you are going to look at that. If you're rational and you're not like a jealous person, you're going to look at that and you're going to be like, "I want to be that. So this guy has done that. So why don't I follow him and listen to what he says?" Obviously, there's people that say that. You have to vet them with their content, but Nick is one of the guys that like says that. But it's not some bullshit. It's like, he's going to tell you exactly how to get there. So again, another thing that resonated with the last one that I have here is, if you want it, this is a little bit of a nuanced one. It's more specifically with the content. But if you want to talk about, like if you talk about a deep technical topic such as AI or automation enough, people will eventually start asking you about business and broader things. This is a really hard one for me to wrap my mind around. But that is what I've noticed with Nick's content, is that his main channel is all about automation. It's all about the business of automation and the technical side of automation. It's tutorials and things like that. He made the daily updates channel. Some people funneled over there, but regardless of where you're watching his content, when you watch somebody enough and you develop that parasocial relationship, eventually we're all human. So like we may, like the audience may like love AI and automation, but they're also all human, and they all have like different things, like as far as, like business cases, and even like, again, I would call it like business to borderline personal things. So my point, the point that I'm making here, and maybe you have the same feelings, maybe you don't, is that I would love to create a situation where people want to, like I can give people information about more than just like one small niche, like maybe just more than just like web design or something like that. The problem is when you just start like throwing things out there, nobody really, like, they can't really resonate fully with you. It's a little counterintuitive. You have to go really narrow, and then I think you can get wider from that. You can't go really wide and like expect to get traction, because you're just kind of like noisy, and you're not. There's not like a specific signal that you're passing through. I'm probably not explaining that incredibly well, but that's one thing that I've noticed, is that, you could start making videos about one very specific thing, but then those people are going to resonate with that specific thing. And then they're eventually the human element of it is going to like click. And then you're going to be able to have more conversations that are deeper like that. So those are just some of the things that, that we, a little bit that we talk about in this episode, and things that Nick has really, that wisdom has been dispensed upon me and many others. So, yeah. I'm just appreciative to know Nick. Thank you, Nick, if you're watching this, for sitting down. And I hope that you guys get a little bit out of this, because, again, like I said, I've just gotten a lot of value from Mr. Saraev. So enjoy the episode. And again, links and everything will be down below. Please make sure you go follow Nick, and enjoy.
Marcus.
Nick, my man. What's up, dude?
Busting your balls. Is your name Marcus?
It's not. No, it's just Mark. It's wild.
All right. Good to see you, man. Thanks for dropping those comments on my daily updates channels. Those are really fun to see.
Oh yeah, dude. I appreciate your work, man, because I don't know. I think there's a lot of us out here that I think there's a lot of people that, like myself at least, that we know what we're doing. Like we have the skill, and we just need to kind of like see some people like yourself that are actually like normal people. Obviously you have things to sell, but you're not like you're not just like fully clickbaiting. You're not like just doing these whole like crazy stories of just some BS. I don't know. I appreciate the the candid nature and the honesty, really. I mean, again, like we could have a whole conversation about the whole like the revenue type stuff, because I think it's important. I like it. I like the revenue transparency. I like that type of thing. Sometimes it's a turnoff for people, but ultimately it's like, why would you be turned off by that? As long as somebody's not bragging about it, they're trying to show you where you could be. You know what I mean? If you just actually care about your craft and try to improve your mindset on your business. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. When I was earlier on in my business, I had much of the same thinking, and it was very difficult for me to find people that were real with what they were doing. If you think about it from the content creator perspective, they are intrinsically motivated to play up all of these things. They want to seem like a bastion of fortitude who never has a fucking cheat day where they binge 8 pounds of cake. They want to seem like they're always on. But the reality is they aren't. And I got a ton of value from just a handful of content creators who, they aren't very big or anything like that, but they are real. And it also made me think, I'm at like the confluence of a bunch of different industries, right? Artificial intelligence being the big one, and media. And I kind of see how these two are coalescing. And with content creation, if we're being honest, just like doable in large part through these models. Like if it's doable in large part through these models, we're soon going to reach a point where like the quantity of media generated by some AI or some model is just so much higher than the quantity of media generatable by a human being like me or you. And it makes me think about market economics. What becomes important in a future like that? Well, transparency, authenticity, right? Like personal, one-on-one, at least the perception of it, connection.
Yeah.
And it made me think, like, if I was really trying to build a brand here that was going to survive and subsist for the next 5, 10, 15 years, what would that look like? And hopefully it's basically exactly what I'm doing now. But just to give you some more insight.
I'm totally with you, man. I think that, throughout my journey, and I want to kind of get into the background a little bit of kind of like, I think the first time I messaged you, it was like a cold email, just like with a Loom video. I don't know if you remember that. And I was just like, I found your shit. And I was like, this guy's doing similar things. It's similar tech-based things, obviously, like technical skills, is making content, is serving a group of people that seem like not only do they want the technical skills, but they also want a little bit of that business aspect. And then obviously you decided with the updates channel too, that was another great methodology to kind of get like a little bit of a different spin. But I think just with the content, this content, like we're talking about in general, like as we move forward, I think about that constantly. And the reason I think about it constantly, and I think the main difference between like your position and my position right now, is that you're deeply entwined in like the automation AI space. And I know about it. I'm in it to a degree, but like I'm come from much more of like the just web design marketing pure space like that. And I feel like specifically WordPress, if you're at all familiar with like the WordPress space, it's definitely behind the time largely, because it's like people that have been there for like 20 years, like seeing the WordPress, community grow and all this sort of stuff, but they don't, I think a lot of times they see AI, they see automation, they don't like fully, kind of like appreciate it and absorb it. Like they know it's like powerful, but it's like, no, we have this stuff over here. So a lot of heady stuff there, but I think I love your perspective because you're already in it and you know how powerful it is, and it's already made you and so many others like so much money. But like there's a lot of people on the outside, I feel like, that aren't leveraging enough. Obviously, it's still relatively fresh. So that's the big difference, I feel like. And I'm trying to get to that level because I realize that, we're both young guys. Like we're going to be here for a while. Like I don't want to be stuck in a scenario where I want to skate to where the puck, is going. I don't want to, I don't want to be sitting here with the bag, not even with the bag. I don't have anything.
Oh man, you got a lot of subscribers. I remember going to your channel, and yeah, like that's something. It's more than something. I think that's basically everything, to be completely honest. In that future, those personal relationships and like the power of a brand is crazy. If we just conceptualize what the marketplace is going to look like in a bit. But hey, I wanted to talk about WordPress really quickly. So I used to be a WordPress dev, funnily enough.
Oh shit!
I
didn't know I was talking to a pro. Damn.
No. It's a novice maybe. I sold, like you date a girl or something, like that girl's out of my league. So I sold above my league.
Okay, I like
sense.
that.
That's some pretty big projects with no freaking idea what I was doing. But I did do WordPress stuff for a while.
Nice.
And like, we can wax poetic about like the clunkiness of like the WordPress dashboard and how crappy some of the extensions and plugins and the ecosystem is, for sure.
Oh, dude, that's what I talk about daily.
Is it?
Pretty much. Yeah, right now. Yeah. I'm kind of getting annoyed by it. It's been my last year and a half, which I mean, it's been great. We could talk more about that, but yeah, continue.
Sure. But I do remember thinking like, like I don't know when this was, man. This must have been like 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago or something like that, when I was still taking on these WordPress products. I remember thinking just like, I can't keep doing this. Like a lot of this stuff was built in what looks like the 1990s. And like, I need to start working with technology that's a little bit more forward seeking. So that was actually one of the main inspirations in me, like learning how to code. I decided instead of me doing like WordPress dev stuff, like PHP or whatever, like I was going to learn like front end skills and like learn how to design my own sites so I could design my own infrastructure and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that took me into a massive rabbit hole of just all these different, CSS libraries. And like, I don't know, I took a bunch of these like make your own custom website courses. And then Tailwind. And then from there, I was like, okay, great. Like now that I know how to build the website and an app, let me try selling it. So I started doing some freelancing. And then that took me more to like these technologies that we were talking about a second ago, like GPT-2 at the time, GPT-3, obviously some automation, drag and drop builders, accelerated my ability to use those. But yeah, like I guess in a circuitous route, like I was doing the exact same thing you're doing. And then I somehow wound my way over to AI and automation, which is pretty cool.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because another motif that I feel like I speak for a lot of the people that I talk to, which is agency owners, freelancers, again, mostly in the WordPress space, because a lot of the things that I've been kind of like teaching and talking about are either WordPress news related, WordPress business related, or WordPress tool related. And I think the one thing that's interesting to me is what you just described there. There's this trajectory that I've seen where you go down so deep into the rabbit hole of technical skills, and then you realize like, oh, I know all this technical stuff, but I need to make a business out of this too. Like I can't just like know all these, unless you want a job, you can go get like a dev job or something, obviously. So I'm in that position currently, trying to like, if I'm going to learn more technical skills, at least have them be like more ROI centric, like whether it's paid advertising, which I'm diving into, or like automation, where it's like very tangible. The problem with websites nowadays, just to deviate slightly, is that I don't believe, being in the industry, they're important, but they're not like completely ROI, easy to sell from an ROI perspective. It's like, yeah, you need something, right? I was just on a call. It's like, yeah, we need something just to show that we're like a company and legit. But other than that, outside of that, if you're just, building websites and maintaining them, it's like, you can only do that for so long, and there's no like upside to it, right? Like everything you talk about is so captivating to me, because it's like, oh yeah, no shit. If I can like save this business tons of hours of time or whatever, or make things like just more efficient in general, no shit, they're going to pay me serious money for that. That's directly ROI capable. It's the same thing with our industry, where SEO was huge for a while. It's kind of like, now, and then like again, pay-per-click. Just, I think that anybody in my space, more similar to me, should be thinking, how can I actually make this business money that I'm working with so I can get paid too? And it's like a weird middle ground that if you're in specifically web design for long enough, you will just be like, what am I doing? Like, why am I not leveraging more of these ROI activities? Like, it's just weird.
Yeah. I think that's also just because of its intersection with like design, at least of like aesthetic design, is very difficult to attach an ROI to. And like, at least when I was at the very starting line of my web design business, I found that the vast majority of my conversations were just surrounding like the way that the website looked, more than anything else, to be honest. And it's like, I understand that that's important, but whether we use like a slightly blue to red gradient over here, or like a yellow to green gradient, like, is that really going to make you a lot of money? Like, can we just talk about things that might be a little bit more important here? Obviously you can go down the rabbit hole, CRO and whatnot, but it's also in part just the person that you're working with, to be clear, because your target audience, if you are designing websites, for the most part, are people that like, they can't do it themselves. They probably lack some technical ability. They lack technical ability. There's the statistical likelihood they are making a lot of money in the current economy goes down by a ton, right? Like, let's be real. So yeah, it's kind of like a between a rock and a hard place problem. Like, you're kind of being attacked from all sides. It's like the definition of the work that you do, the market that you're tackling, like the slowly decreasing relative value of your service versus, the many builders and so on and so forth that are available. And obviously we could talk all about how people are way better, and you can make way better websites with a human being like Mark Szymanski than you can with like some drag and drop website builder. But like, look at Bolt, New, and all these different tools that are just allowing you to do this sort of stuff more and more yourself. So I like it, man. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm stoked for you. And I'm stoked for you building the channel as well. I take the vast majority of the channel growth, have to forgive me because I haven't actually like watched probably one proper full-length video.
But I imagine you're making videos every 5 minutes. You're making a new video, so you don't have time. That's all good.
Dude, it's funny because I was talking about you on my recent video. I just recorded one, and you had asked some question, and I used your name as an example. And I'm just on your channel right now, Mark Szymanski. Mm-hmm. But you had a J in there, and so I was trying to pronounce your name, Mark, and I was like, Mark Szymanski, and like it screwed me up big time, man. So
the middle initial, it gets them. Yeah, it's
Am
just
I saying this right?
Yeah, Mark Szymanski. It's actually perfect.
Mark
Szymanski. Joseph is my middle name, so sometimes
Joseph's middle name, right? Yeah, God, I was wondering about that because I don't think that has a J in it. Anyway,
that would be even harder. Tough.
So I take it most of your growth is probably from like website stuff, right? Like looking at your most popular video here, it was how we built our custom client portal on WordPress.
Yeah, been through seasons, honestly, because earlier on I was like trying to do like business content when everybody else was, following Gary Vee and things. And then about a year and a half ago, I was like, I'm a web designer by trade. Let me just start talking to web designers. And much like yourself, when you share that knowledge, like people will come. It's really that simple. So yeah, that's been most of the growth. Yeah.
Cool, man. That's sweet. Yeah. So I guess future-wise then, you want to pivot and talk more about technologies that produce demonstrable return on investment. Yeah, that's the big thing.
Definitely where I think I'm going to have more success and longevity, future-proofness. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to. We're going to put this on the channel. People are going to be like, like watching my stuff. There's no. If you guys watch this in the WordPress gang, I still love all you. I'm just saying that, like, I say this with the utmost sincerity. And I say this regularly, I am one of the youngest people in that community. Now, it's probably different. I would imagine it's different for you. I imagine there's a lot of young people in automation, obviously.
Yeah.
It's completely different in WordPress because WordPress has been around, as you mentioned earlier. It's kind of like the tried but true kind of older thing in the room, right? A lot of great things. I'm not taking anything away from it, but, especially with like recent drama and stuff like that, if you go to a convention for WordPress, you're going to see average age is probably going to be, late 30s, probably, maybe early 40s. Now, that's not a bad thing. I've learned a lot from people wiser than I am, but at the same time, it is a different type of environment because, those people are literally just in a different place in their life. They have like children, they have like bigger responsibilities. Maybe some of them have built companies, maybe some of them are working for other companies. And I just feel like I'm on that cusp where like I don't have children yet, I'm married, but I like don't have, like I'm still like at that last bit of risk that I can take and just complete like kind of freedom. And I'm like, I really don't want to like lock myself in to anything. Not like saying that you would long-term anyway, but just saying all that to say that I see some of the writing on the wall there or see how things are changing. And I'm very susceptible to it. Like I'm happy. Like, let's go do something, like automation, AI, and like try to catch this wave. Cause I don't think it's just a wave. I think it's like literally where we're headed. So.
Yeah, for sure. I bet you there's a ton of space in WordPress, X, AI, and automation. Like implement. I don't know, plugins or whatever, probably, but like implementing some sort of like AI first thing within WordPress, if that makes sense. I don't even know if it's something simple as just like pre-filling a bunch of fields or something with AI, but like I could see that being a lot of value and that being like doubly impressive because a lot of the people that, from my experience, are like developers and stuff like that by trade. A lot of them like they sort of devalue AI, or they just think like, oh, like AI, like yeah, but they can't really do anything because I did that one demo with ChatGPT back in 2022 and like it just gave me a shitty answer. It's like, well, things have changed a lot since then.
There's definitely some of that. Available. There's some that's already getting acted on. I think Automatic, like the WordPress, the company behind it. They're I know some people that are in the actual AI space, got acquired and types of things like that. So there's definitely a lot of room there. And I guess you're the best person to ask this question. How do you feel about, like, what's your definition of AI and automation? Obviously, they're two different things, kind of work in tandem. Automation is like the steps and the processes, like you're using N8N, you're using Make. But like, how much of that, like, there's kind of just two separate things that go hand in hand, right? A lot of times because you're using AI to automate pieces of maybe your workflow. You're using APIs, obviously, as the steps in the flow and things like that to integrate with one another. But I think that those three things right there, artificial intelligence, the process of automation, and like just regular API situations that every SaaS has now and every platform has, like those three things I feel like are just like money for lack of a better term. There's just so much you can do with that. And I just feel like I need to just break more into that and continue to actually try it, really. Because, I mean, I was watching some of your videos last night. I'm like, my problem to this point, maybe other people, has been, what can I automate that actually would produce an ROI revenue too? It's like, oh, I see the value in this. But then, you have some great videos on your channel. We'll link to them in the description, like, of those types of things. But I think that's a big hurdle for a lot of people getting into it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was just having a conversation right before I jumped on our call with a guy that owns 30 or 40, or he works with 30 or 40 dental clinics. And he was asking me a similar question, like what sorts of things can I do, or can I like leverage artificial intelligence to do that I'm currently doing that, I could do way faster or better with AI. And I think that's the key. So it's what can I do that I'm currently doing, but what can I sprinkle on automation and AI too, basically, that just improves the speed and the rate at which I'm doing the thing that is working. Meaning that you need to have something that is working, right? Yeah. The reason why, earlier today, I recorded another daily update where one of the questions was, hey, like, what should I automate first? Should I automate this or that or that or that? And my response was basically like, do you have a process already? If you don't have a process, don't rush to automate something that doesn't exist. Don't like look for opportunities to put AI in. Instead, like, work on the foundational process, have something that works and that generates money. And then once you have something that works and generates money, then you can pour fuel or gasoline on the fire. So in the case of the guy that works at all these dental clinics, one thing that they're doing is they do these like end of year calls or reactivations on clients, where basically, I'm not big on how insurance works in the States, to be honest, but I understand that like you have some insurance benefit or something by the end of the year. Yep. And typically rolls over. So like, 2024 to 2025. One thing that they were doing in all their clinics is like in the last month, right, December starts, they'd call all of the patients at the clinic and be like, hey, how's it going? We've noticed that you have this much money in insurance benefits just waiting to be used. And we just want to let you know that if you don't use them, they're going to roll over. So just give us a call back as soon as you can. So this is a process they were doing, end of your client reactivation based off insurance benefit rollover, that was already generating them a ton of money. Well, now that you have something that's generating a ton of money, you could 100x that with AI. So how do you 100x that? Instead of using like a human being that can only call a certain number of people, dental clinics are notoriously understaffed, use like a VAPI agent or something. Instead of even using a VAPI agent, maybe send some sort of mass SMS campaign or something where you use AI to summarize their patient history, talk about things that maybe they've mentioned through their big scheduling system. You have a bunch of fields with a bunch of visit information. Turn that into some one-line personalization thing. Be like, hey, Sarah from XYZ Dental, I remember last time you came in, you talked about X, Y, and Z. Just want to let you know that your insurance benefits are rolling over. If you want me to, book you in for a meeting or book you in for a consultation before December the 31st, just call back. And by the way, if you call back within 24 hours, like I'll give you a free teeth whitening session or something too. Yeah. So now that's a campaign that like it prints. That makes a ton of money. And it's only capable at that scale because you're automating and using AI in it. But it's not like automation and AI made the thing. It's kind of like if you multiply anything by 0, the end result is 0, right? So you have to have something first in order to multiply it by AI. Like you have to, if AI is 100 and your process is like 1, it turns your process from a 1 into 100. But if you don't have a process and it's 0, then it's still 0. Yep. Am I making a lot of sense here?
No, that's a good point. Yeah, because you have to, I think my issue was that I know that I have things that I could potentially automate, or I see like the big thing that I'm doing now is, again, the beautiful part about going back to the website thing to bring it into the automation AI space is that it's hilarious because where I started personally, I don't know if everyone starts like this, but I didn't start as like a web designer, like I did, but I started more as like somebody that's interested in business. Came from like an entrepreneurial background. My family had a diner for like 30 years, right? Like I was always around like this idea of making money for yourself, doing something, right? Providing some sort of value. So like, I always knew that there was ways to optimize businesses, and that's ultimately what you're doing. The term fractional COO that you use, it's like chef's kiss. Like that's like exactly kind of like where I kind of see myself in some ways, because I'm definitely not a designer. I keep saying web designer. I'm not a designer. I'm like much more of the functionality developer kind of type. So I translate that into, okay, we want to make money. We want things to work. We want to be efficient. We want to be effective. So how do we do that? And like the website is a part of that because it's part of like the marketing funnel. It's part of that stuff. There's definitely pieces of that you pull in potentially. But when we're talking about the actual automation and making businesses better, what I've seen is I have clients and they want websites and their businesses are shit. Like the actual functionality, like the ops of it are shit. Because it's mostly small business. I get it. Like you're not technical. You're doing some sort of random, like, laborious like thing that you just knew and you turned it into a business. There's a million examples of this. God bless them because they're doing what they need to do. But like that's where we could step in. I feel like, and this is what I'm interested to get your specific thoughts on. Is that what a lot of your experiences have been like, where you hop in and you're like, there's two approaches. I know there's a templated approach, but also if you're like looking at a business, you're like, there are like 6 things right off the bat that I know that we could present some sort of process, whether it's automation, AI, like something like that, that's going to make your life and your staff and your office like so much, it's going to make it so much better. That's where I feel like a lot of my peers, they think like that maybe to an extent, but if they don't have, that's like almost like really where like the rubber meets the road as far as like the web design and marketing versus this land that we're getting into with optimization and things. And there's real ROI, like we said there. So that's, I don't know, there's a lot of thoughts there, but I don't know where kind of like what your experience has been like, or how you've actually, I guess sold that almost in a way, really.
For sure. You mentioned wanting to have, let's say, 5 or 6 things that you thought could deliver a demonstrable ROI to these businesses. Yeah. Well, that's of course true because businesses follow patterns. Like an HVAC company is going to do pretty similar things to most other HVAC companies with minor deviations. So the sales funnels of most of these sorts of businesses tend to be very similar. So I'll give you an example, like the average digital or web design agency. Maybe I won't use the design because I don't want to trigger you anymore, Mark, but the average web dev company, let's say, they typically follow a pretty similar process, right? For like acquiring the clients and then speaking with the clients and then delivering some sort of proposal and then having some sort of onboarding or whatever. So usually, you have that flow. And then what you can do is you could build systems that work on aggregate for most web design or web development companies. For instance, most web design or web development companies, they will send a proposal of some kind with, a big breakdown of exactly what you're going to offer with like a scope of work with a few templated packages or options, right? Mm-hmm. What you can do as a person in AI and automation is you could build a system that generates proposals, right? Mm-hmm. And then you could say, well, odds are, run me through your client process. Oh, you're generating proposals. Okay, cool. Like, how are you doing that? Oh, well, it's a massive pain in the ass. We have this template, takes us an hour every time we have a call. It's like, all right, cool. Well, here's a system that I developed for X, Y, and Z web dev agency that does it all in 0.2 seconds. Actually, we take the transcript of the call. We use that to summarize, automatically identify action points. We take those action points, automatically compare it against a database of like 4 or 5 options that we have. And then we pick the templated option and then customize the introductory page. So it seems as if I just wrote that for the client. And we do it all automatically. It's like $1,500 a month or something like that, right? It's like, oh, okay, like there's actually a demonstrable ROI there. My sales staff is no longer spending 2 hours a day doing sales call admin. Now, they take the call, and by the time the call is done, everything's ready. Not to mention the improvement in conversion rate as a result of the person getting a proposal within 5 minutes, right? Like that's huge. So that's a good example of stuff. There are many more. Yeah,
there's 2 things. One, that sounds a lot better to me than designing websites, because again, not trying to craft anything. It's tough. Like actually, again, the design. But the second part is one random thing that I thought, because I've started to layer in the beautiful part about being in like the web space and digital space and like providing something like this. Again, talking to potentially my audience. Like if you're doing, the cool thing about doing websites is you're kind of already slightly in the door to some degree. I feel like at least that's again what's happened for me. I can go to my clients that are established and be like, hey. Literally I've done this recently. Like we're offering new services now, like automation, those types of things that are more ROI centric. Happy to have a conversation with you again, just like you said, just to see where maybe the opportunities lie. And the one thing I've noticed is a little bit of I feel like a gold nugget that I wonder if you have some thoughts on is really depends on who you're talking to though in the business, because you have to be talking to like the person kind of at the top or the decision maker in general, obviously. But I mean, specifically in this case, I can't really be talking to the secretary and tell her how I'm going to like make her like basically replace most of her job.
You replace her job.
Yeah. I just realized that the other day. I was like, shit, I really need to not. I really need to not do that.
It's like, oh shit, what am I doing?
Is your boss around? I gotta talk to him about something.
About firing you, dude. It's crazy you mentioned that. I can't tell you how many times I've done that completely unknowingly. I'm like, guys, like, okay, so I could tell you like a million of these stories, but one of them in particular stands out. Where I was developing this big project management system for one of my clients. Then they worked with like local services business like HVAC, plumbing. They're basically like a marketing agency. So they had a big project management system and they had a project manager, a person that was managing the projects. And I was like, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to build the best project management system ever. It's going to be awesome. So it's like team training. What's going on, guys? I'm going to make everybody's life here so easy. It's going to be so easy. You don't have to show up to work. Like the project manager's like, dude, I got the most passive aggressive emails from that girl.
God.
And thank God bless that her soul. She's still working in that business. But for sure, like it was like a genuine concern on her face every time we talked. Like, wait a second, is he just automating me? And I, to be pragmatic, a lot of the systems that I've implemented in companies whose teams I don't know have had to reduce headcount as a result of it, because their average revenue per employee, how much money a single staff member can generate on aggregate, goes way the hell up, and they just don't need people. Yeah. So it's a real tough line to walk.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I feel like it's just a weird, it's a weird spot. Had a question for you too. Do you? Well, there's a ton of questions wrapped up in here, but obviously you're doing like an incredible amount of content now, which is amazing. I have too many questions on that because I feel like the natural progression is learn skill, build business with skill, and then share everything that you've done. I kind of have a motto. It's like literally learn, try, and share, basically because of that. So, I'm going to start here because this is a me personal problem that I'm really excited to get your thoughts on. Do you think that there's a specific time, or what was the calculus that you made before you started teaching people stuff? Because I feel like, just again, my personal anecdote is, had some success building like a small agency, very, very minute, like nowhere near like solid revenue numbers, but like had some success there. Then enough to where I felt like I knew that I could teach other people stuff. Then I went into the content late 2023, I guess. And then it's been great. Like, I mean, I met so many people, great connections, yourself obviously included. Like, just like, I'm really interested in this part of it. And I feel like I have a decent way of communicating and teaching, all that sort of stuff. But then I start to think, I'm like, fuck, I'm looking around at like you, I'm looking around at so many other people. I'm like, I don't have nearly the amount of success from this agency monetary standpoint that all these other people do. Maybe I should like go back to the well a little bit there and realize that there's a lot of meat left on the bone that I could do. Cause I don't, this whole thing of like, there's content creators online that are just like teaching shit, but they're not, it's like, first inkling is like red flag. Are they actually doing this? Like, is this true? Yes. Like, what's going on? And, that's the thing I've appreciated about you is cause like you're very open and transparent, but you're also like, you're not like, you're open, you're transparent with the numbers and all the stuff that you're doing. And you can tell that it's not bullshit because like you have the technical chops too and all that sort of stuff. So just, my point is like, do you think that how have you navigated that? Have you seen other people that, we don't need names, but like haven't done it well? Like you look at it and you're like, I wouldn't do it that way. Like what's your thought on all that?
Yeah, for sure. Man, I love that. Can you say that 3-step process one more time? Was it learn,
try, and share? It's already trademarked though. It's already trademarked though, so Dang
it. Mark Szymanski coming after it. Yeah. Dude, I basically said some variation of that like every day for the last probably 4 or 5 months because I run these community products where, you pay a monthly subscription and then I basically come in and I teach you with pre-recorded Loom videos how to get an automation agency up and running. Yeah. But we also have a community aspect to that where people can ask questions and stuff. So the main question that like I get at least once a day is like, hey, I see a lot of people on YouTube blowing up for AI and automation. Should I make a YouTube channel? Or, they'll ask for something. Hey, I spent 500 hours last month making YouTube videos. Why am I not getting anywhere, right? And my response to that is always, in order to succeed in like a hyper-saturated content environment, which is what we are all stepping into, you need to have something unique about you. You need to have some accomplishment. You need to have some achievement that allows people to take you at face value. Alex Hormozi talks about proof, promise, plan all the time. This is his like intro formula where basically you say, hey, I'm Nick. I've done really cool thing here. Today we're going to teach you how to do X, Y, and Z. And here's a roadmap to get there, right? That first element, the proof, that's the most important. So my recommendation to all these people is usually, hey, you need to have something impressive or some major achievement. So do you have anything impressive or a major achievement? And they're always like, well, I made like $500 that one time. And I'm like, well, nobody cares, right? Don't just spend your entire life yelling into the void with like a megaphone that doesn't work. You know what I mean? Go get yourself the most kitted out freaking megaphone. If you want to stand out amongst the crowd, you need to have some sort of win. So in my case, I scaled my agency to $72K a month in the automation agency space. And that is more money than the vast, vast majority of people in AI automation will ever make. It's really not that much money for an agency. It's still capable of being done with just a couple of staff members. But I looked at my target audience, which were going to be beginners, and I said, is that impressive to them? And the answer was like, holy shit, like that's the most money I've ever seen in my life. I want to make that. So if you've made that much money, and you tell like, hey, this is how much money I've made, you are inherently interesting. You're inherently fascinating. People care about what you have to say just because you've done something they really want to do. And then once you've checked that box, it doesn't have to be 72K, 10K, 5K, 15K, whatever the hell your target audience cares about. Or maybe it's not even money. Maybe it's having like a thriving relationship or being a certain, I don't know, you're fucking ripped as shit and like your neck looks like a hose veins feeding nutrients to your brain. Like if you've accomplished something that people in your target audience want, then you can start making content about it. And then your growth will necessarily, the slope of the line of your subscriber count and follower count will be so much higher than if you had just done it at the very beginning of your journey. So that's my recommendation, right? Just like you said, learn, try, and then share. Although I might, Nick Saraev's version would be learn, achieve, and then share. And don't do it, braggadociously. Don't just like whip your cock out and be like, look at me, I'm amazing. You're doing it. Sorry, this is like an after hours podcast.
Anything goes here, bro. It's fine.
Okay, good. Remember the YouTube made for children box? Is this video made for children?
Absolutely not. It's a whole channel. The whole channel has that box. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I guess anyway, what I'm trying to say is like once you achieve something, then you're not going to be bragging about it. You're using it to some end, which is obviously to improve your renown and your perceived authority, and then ultimately your subscriber count, and your growth, and your money. So that was my approach. I see a lot of people forgetting that, or just not really knowing it to start.
Yeah. How do you? I guess I probably know the answer to this question, but how do you deal with people that don't that doesn't resonate with them? Are they just not your target audience because they don't appreciate the fact? I mean, obviously, if you're coming out and you're being like an asshole about it, obviously some people are going to get turned off by that. But I've never felt like you as the example. I've never felt like you did that. I feel like it was much more of like, this is what I did, like this is what I've done, like very just factual. And then here's what I'm going to tell you because of that. Here's how I got there or whatever. How much, I've watched a lot of your videos, like how much shit do you get because of any of that or anything like that? I mean, it's obviously nothing really to worry about, but I'm just kind of curious because I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't really like the people tell me how much money they're making. They're kind of like jerks for that. For sure. But is it like a limiting belief type situation, or what do you think?
No, I don't think that they're wrong for it. I mean, we all come from slightly different cultural backgrounds and ideas surrounding sharing wealth and so on and so forth. When I started talking about how much money I was making, my family was like very concerned about it. I come from an Eastern European background. My parents immigrated here right after the fall of communism. And so that sort of like sharing about what you have and so on and so forth is almost always just viewed negatively and braggadociously. So to answer your question, yeah, I've gotten some shit. I had somebody call me a trust fund kid about
that's the go-to
7 or 8 months ago. Trust fund kid. And I was looking at like and I mean like when somebody calls you a trust fund kid, like you kind of have to click on their profile, look around. I was looking at their profile. I was called a trust fund kid on Twitter. But well, not just by one person, by a bunch of people. I was looking at their profile and they were driving like kitted out BMWs.
Oh, nice.
And like they were like wearing really fancy clothes. And I was like,
that's
like projecting. My family was bankrupt for the first like fucking half decade of my life. Like I'm not a trust fund kid. Like, so I don't know. Like, I think you fall more into that category than me, buddy. But what am I going to do, right? Like, I'm not a trust fund kid. You're a trust fund kid. Like, that doesn't help anything. So, not everybody is going to take that, right? And a lot of people are going to. Okay, you know what? This is, and I don't mean to get political, but this has also been really illuminating for me because I see a lot of things thrown around all the time. Usually about like people that are rich and people that have made a lot of money, about how they were like terrible people in their youth, or they're like some sort of like really, really crazy jackass or something. But just given the fact that I've gotten a lot of people say stuff like that about me, and I'm just at the very start line of like, I've barely made any money at all in the grand scheme of things. It really does make me have a little bit more compassion for people when claims like that are thrown around. And if people do throw around claims like that about some big celebrity or something, like I always kind of have to hold my breath and be like, really? Like, I don't know this for sure, so I can't just necessarily jump on this bandwagon. Yeah. A guy that I see this happening all the time to, his name's Brian Johnson. Do you know Brian Johnson?
Seems like the most typical name. I probably know a few. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. He's this, he sold this company, Braintree, to I think Venmo or something for like $600 million, right? So he's like super loaded. And then he started, he's kind of weird. He's really fucking weird, okay? He sources blood from his son. Like, it's odd. It's odd. But he's basically become like a health and wellness influencer.
Oh, okay. I didn't know his name. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know the guy I'm talking about, right?
He looks like he's like 70 or something. He looks like he's like 30, right?
No, completely different guy, but that's pretty funny.
All right, some different guy. It's not the health guy? It's not the guy that's like obsessed with living until...
No, he is, but he's not 70. He's like 42 or something.
Oh shit. Okay, well, it's not working then for me, I guess. I don't remember. We gotta pull up a picture at some point.
Never sees this podcast.
Sorry, Brian. Whatever's happening.
To make a long story short, anytime I see him on Reddit, everybody's just shitting all over him because he's like a multimillionaire. It's like, oh, look at this rich asshole trying to like live longer than the rest of us or whatever. But like, at no point has he ever... That's very abundantly clearly not his desire. If you watch even like 5 minutes of his stuff, he's like, hey, so I'm basically like, I thought that I could make the entire planet live a little bit longer if I just used myself as a guinea pig. And like, I really don't have anything else to do with the rest of my life. And like, this has helped me. So yeah, I'm just going to open source all my stats and start taking all this weird shit that nobody's ever heard of that could kill me. Like, he's actually the most genuine man on planet Earth. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when I see stuff like that, after being called a trust fund kid and after seeing, so much hatred levied towards him just by virtue of his success and his willingness to dare, it's just made me a little bit more compassionate about people like that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Brian. I didn't realize you were actually younger than that. I've seen him. I definitely have seen that guy before, but that's amazing. Cause like, yeah, it's all about like, I don't know if it was you, somebody else. It's perception and perspective. There's like kind of a difference there. I feel like that's your perception, and then I obviously didn't resonate fully, but your perception and then like other people's like perspective, like the whole thing. So that's obviously, you start making content on the internet whatsoever, you realize that quite heavily that people are going to give you shit for this, that, or the other thing. And you just got to kind of let a lot of that go. Because nobody really ever understands the whole aspect of it. So, but I don't know.
What kind of shit have you gotten, Mark?
I mean, luckily the WordPress realm seems like relatively tame for the most part. I feel like a lot of it just has probably been like, why didn't you use this plugin or something like that? The big thing, okay, the big thing in WordPress right now is, when was the last time you were really in WordPress? I know you're using like Ghost now, I think, right?
Yeah, for my blog. I don't know, probably like 2.5 years ago. I still technically manage one client site through WordPress, but I talk to her like once a year.
So like, WordPress, the big thing in WordPress is like just the page builder situation, really, because there's like a bunch of different ways you can build WordPress websites, which is difficult to explain to clients sometimes. But that's the big thing. So a lot of it is like page builder wars, like, oh, is Bricks better? Is Elementor better? Is, Divi better? All these different ones or whatever. So occasionally there's a little bit of that, but at the same time, like you build an audience based off the tools that you use. And then, 99.9% of your comments are nice, and then the rest of them, just a couple of them are just like, you're an asshole or something like that. Like, why didn't you do this? So you can't pinpoint any specific things coming right up. But honestly, I think that's also a testament to the fact that like, I genuinely don't care. A lot of times, anytime somebody says something weird to me, I just like, I don't have the energy for this. And a lot of times I just go, thank you, ! That's it. So I just like...
You throw in the exclamation point. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a little passive aggressive maybe, but it's just, it's mainly just like, I want to get this out of my box. The box, because you're scrolling through it in the updates. You want to just get this out of here. I'm not going to like block them or anything. It's a little ridiculous. So
for sure.
But question actually on that, you're doing a ton of content, you're doing a ton of, obviously you're making a ton of money like through the agency and stuff like that. I do want to touch on that a little bit, but how do you're an interesting case, I feel like, and a lot of your followers probably understand this, but you're a solopreneur effectively, right? You maybe have VA and maybe a couple things here and there, but you don't have like a large outfit. Like you've had a lot of success just basically on your own. And the way I want to frame this is I have a note written like, do you build your own website still? That's too specific on the nose. I'm interested in that. But my thing is like, where do you, and I kind of answered this, I asked you this question kind of via email a little bit, like how do you decide where to spend your time? And I appreciate you spending your time with me here. But how do you actually calculate that aside from you can mention the formula, but how do you do that like with all the things you're doing? Like you have content, you have the agency, you have like your own things within the business that you have to work on, right? Like working on your business rather than working on your client stuff. From the outside looking in, it looks like you do a shit ton of stuff and you don't sleep. But I know, like, you got the girlfriend, you're traveling, like you're doing this stuff. So like what does that actually look like? How do you manage your time? How do you do any of that sort of stuff? I know pieces of it, but I'm interested to get your actual holistic thoughts on that.
I would always look at people that were making a little bit more money than I was, and then I would always be like, how the hell do they juggle all this stuff? I think it's because, one, when you're watching content creators, the very medium that you judge a person in terms of their output is something that is highly leveraged. And so by nature, it will seem as if they are doing more. And if you follow somebody, it will look like they are everywhere. And so, you're a subscriber of my YouTube channel, like I am now a subscriber of yours. I see you more often, and you see me more often around the place. You are just getting a false perception of just like the amount of quote unquote work that a person does. So let me just preface that in terms of like how actually to spend your time and stuff like that. I think there's a difference between like efficiency and then effectiveness. And it's a big thing that I think a lot of people muck up just because the two terms are very similar. And I don't know, some people mess up KPIs and like jobs that they've had that talk about efficiency and effectiveness. But efficiency is your ability to do like one thing, like basically very like efficiently, like minimal resources spent, in most cases time. And then effectiveness is like your ability to do all of the things, I think. Okay. Like if you could like count up, efficiency would be like you doing one task today. How efficient are you at that one task? And then effectiveness would be like how much have you done just in aggregate or in total, if you count up all the tasks, right? And so I focus on being extraordinarily effective. And I'm not saying that just to suck my own dick, but because I've actually thought through this quite a bit, like, in terms of how to spend my time. And so like if I genuinely like take a moment to I don't know, sit down and do some task, it's because on some level, like I know that is going to be generating me an outsized return on investment. And then if I have my own internal hourly rate that is, let's say, about $500 an hour. If I work on this task, I'll make over $500 an hour. If I work on this other task, I'm going to make less than $500 an hour. And what I've decided to do is just not do any of the tasks that make me less than $500 an hour. Like I don't even delegate them. I just don't do them at all. Does that make sense? And it turns out that you can actually get away with not doing the vast majority of work that people think that you need to do. If you just focus on like the simple 2 or 3 revenue drivers, which in my case are YouTube videos, stuff like client management, stuff like, I don't know, I also have a little bit of a serendipity component. Hence why I'm doing interviews with you, for instance, or connecting with people that I don't know about ahead of time. If you just focus on like 2 or 3 of those things and you just do them every morning, the second that you wake up, like my community management, for instance, it's honestly, it's pretty crazy how much you could do, man. I used to work like 14, 15 hours a day, and I would do like a quarter of what I do now in like 4 hours, realistically. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's about being very ruthless with your revenue drivers. You know who was really important for me? A guy called Matthew Larson, who I now have a podcast with.
Yeah, follow
he has to be the most straight shooter on planet Earth. He's just like, I can't tell you the number of times I was like, he's like, what are you doing today? I'm like, oh, I'm doing this. He's like, why are you doing this? That's not making you money. And I'm like,
well, sounds like Matthew.
Money. He's like, no, that doesn't make you any money. Quit being a noob. Do the stuff that makes you money. Focus on like writing and like content creation and sales and that. Don't focus on the things that don't actually generate you any sort of return on investment. So if you're talking about how, I don't know, I guess experience after a while, like a ruthless evaluation of the expected value of every task, like I talked about in that formula.
Yeah. I think there's probably an obnoxious amount of people that need to hear that, myself included, because I need to just get better at that, I guess, because there's not a lot of, I feel like it's hard to quantify, even with a formula like that. The hardest part, and I think this speaks directly to it, there's this concept of, and I've adopted your task management system, like, somebody else did it, but you told me about it the other day, right? Like the to-do, the inbox to-do and future. I love that. The trouble for me has always been like actually prioritizing. Like I know what I need to do. Like I know like all the whole list, obviously. I don't have a problem making a list, getting things done. But if you gave me like 5 things, the actual, like that whole concept is tough. And I guess I just need to practice with that formula a little bit more. But I feel like even then there's some subjectivity, right? Because you're kind of assigning like a little bit of a value to how much, like what the outcome, like the expected success rate of it almost is, or,
yeah, for sure.
So you got any tips on that at all? Like on how to measure that specifically, like the subjective piece of it?
Well, generally speaking, let's say you're running your web dev agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you're making like 20K a month or something. And you're getting to the upper limits of what you realistically can feasibly do yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What most people will think they need to do at that point is hire somebody, right? They're saying, oh, I'm drowning in leads. I can't keep responding or having sales calls with leads. Oh, like I'm drowning in projects. I can't keep like doing all these project fulfillments. Oh, I'm tearing my hair out. I'm expending 100% of my bandwidth is being utilized. What if I told you the answer to your problem is not hiring somebody, but it's actually selling more? You'd probably look at me and you'd say, Nick, that's stupid. I just told you that I was maxed out on bandwidth on sales calls and stuff like that. Well, it turns out the answer to the vast majority of problems that people suffer from is more growth. If you sold more, you would have your pick of the litter. You would be able to choose the clients that pay you a disproportionately higher amount per unit time that you invest. The second that you start doing that, now you're earning maybe 1.5 to 2x to 3x on the amount of money you're making. So instead of capping out at 20K, they can cap out at 30K. If you continue focusing on growth and lead gen, now you have strong pipeline, meaning that your conversion rate on the calls that you need to get in order to, land a project is even lower. So you can start bidding higher amounts. You can also start kind of setting the score with the clients where it's like, hey, we only build X, Y, and Z website. Well, why do you only build X, Y, and Z website? Well, because it's the most time efficient for you, Mark, using this template, that template, that template. So now you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, right? You're making more money on the front end. You're also doing less work on the back end because you're only doing the work that delivers you a ridiculous, extraordinary ROI. And you did it all solo and also not focusing on what basically everybody else says you have to do, which is hiring or working your project management or making it better. So I think the vast majority of the time, most people should just focus on growth. Growth solves everything. Growth makes it so easy. When you have growth is a hammer that makes everything else look like a nail. And indeed, everything is a nail. If you have that growth hammer, project management, done. I'm not charging enough, done. I'm tired, done. You just make so much money that it doesn't matter. So maybe that in a nutshell is really like the reason why you feel that way about the work that I'm doing, because basically all the tasks are just focused on growth. Even my conversation with you in some way is growth. I'm going to be clipping this. I'm going to be putting it out on those clips channels that I talked about. I'm also being introduced to a new audience, your followers. If you think about it in that way, there's always going to be some growth associated with the actions that I do. So you might be better off focusing a little bit more on growth than whatever else you got on your plate, honestly, just speaking candidly.
Honestly, I mean, I appreciate that because I think in this, and I feel like this particular part of it is something that a lot of probably your audience, but definitely my audience needs to hear, is that I went into, I speak about this like year and a half of in WordPress. Pretty much last year it was growth in the form of connections, but in this year I was specifically like, I know a lot of people, I know a lot of stuff, I have a lot of connections, I'm getting opportunities. I need to actually focus on selling. Like I was barely on any like true sales calls in 2024, and I was like, we can't run a business like that. I mean, we need to at least be on like either like for the content side of it, like some sponsorship calls or some, consulting calls or something like that. Or on the website, like, businesses that want websites need these types of things. And I've definitely already turned it up in 2025 where like I'm looking for opportunities. It sounds ridiculous, but I feel like a lot of people fall into this trap when they have the technical skill. I've been talking about this thing recently that I don't know if I made up or stole from somewhere inadvertently. This concept of like a scale, like a spectrum between technician and entrepreneur. And on one end is technician, one end is entrepreneur. And I feel like a lot of people, when they have that technical skill, they start off way on the technician side. And depending on their growth, specifically from their own personal growth and like how the business grows, they might move significantly towards the entrepreneur side if they end up pulling themselves out of the business, or they might just like stick right in the middle where they're constantly kind of doing both. A lot of solopreneurs, I feel like, do that. I feel like yourself, you're still highly technical, but I feel like you've moved past that mid mark and you're so pragmatic about a lot of the things that you think about in that regard. And I feel like, I just feel like that's a really important lesson that I'm trying to slowly like implement into my own thing. And I think a lot of other people that I talk to probably would be, I don't know, keen on like kind of understanding that and seeing where they actually, lie and where they're headed. I don't know if any of that resonates.
Yeah, I've thought about this exact concept. You definitely did not get it from me though. So don't worry about that. I must have got this from the same source that you did, because I've thought about this. This is how I like mentally model things. Like you're either like you're a hyper technical person or you're an entrepreneur by nature. Why? Because I think the definition of entrepreneurship is just like, is basically being able to operate at like 70% confidence, essentially. Like the definition of entrepreneurship is being able to operate without all the information. But that's what I think is an entrepreneur. You don't have all the answers. It's not like a test on an exam or something like that. You just move forward. You don't know whether this is going to happen, but you just move forward regardless. I think if you're a highly technical person, you operate by nature, like your paradigm is the exact opposite. You just want to make sure you know everything before you make the next step. You have some minor technical issue about how you're going to do some implementation that stops you from reaching out to a lead in the first place. I see this all the time in my communities. So I think about things exactly the same way, for sure. And I think that more people lean towards the technical side just because of education, right? You know, we spend our entire lives being told that we need to raise our hands before we speak, right? Or try something. Obviously, that's going to, fit 12 years of mandatory or however many years of education is going to do that to us. So most people should be debiasing against that by like actively being like, holy shit, I feel scared to do this thing. I don't have all the information. And it's like, oh, wait a second. That's a signal that I should probably go out and do it.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm hoping my journey continues that way. I just think I think it's an important thing to realize, like, because I mean, the thing you said the other day was absolutely never heard it put like that. You either like win or you give up. Like, as long as you don't give up, you win. That's definitely never said it like that, but that's probably what has gotten me to this phase because, I left my like corporate job like right before COVID happened and like I haven't had a job since, and I don't think I could ever have a job again just because one, I appreciate being able to say whatever the hell I want to say on the internet because you can't do that. But
damn right.
Yeah, but even if you don't have like the level of success that you see like your peers have, like I would say, like I kind of alluded to earlier, it's still like the freedom outweighs it, like the opportunity to be able to do it, and that realization that as long as you don't give up at some point, as long as you're doing something, right, you're not just sitting there waiting for things to happen. You want to be a little optimized and I think calculated, but ultimately you're going to get there. You know what I mean? Eventually something's going to happen. So I don't know.
I'd like to share with you a story that my business partner at the time, about 5 years ago, something that he told me. We were on the side of the Save On Foods in an area called, right by New Westminster, which is a city in the greater Vancouver area. And we were broke as hell. We were absolutely fucking broke. We were eating 67-cent bagels with, the cream cheese that my friend would bring from home because we were so broke that we couldn't afford like going to a restaurant for lunch. We were door to door selling marketing services. And I remember complaining to him about success. And I was like, I'm just so worried that I'm not going to be successful. And Gurinder looked back at me and he said something along the lines of course you're going to be successful. And he said it in his very pointed salesman way because he was a tremendous salesman and he still is. I'm friends with him to this day. Just talking the other, he actually just bought me some Jerusalem shawarma the other day. Weird, man. Just mailed it over to my house. Odd. But he's like, of course you're going to be successful. And I was like, dude, how can you say that? And he's like, dude, like, it's not even a question. Like the fact that like you're even worried about that by definition means you're going to be successful. If anybody on planet Earth spends that long thinking about something, it's more unlikely that they wouldn't get it. So of course you're going to be successful. Like, dude, just, like relax. It's not that big of a deal. And that was like 5 years ago. And that was one of those major paradigm shifts in my life where I was like, oh shit, you're right. So the fact that you've done this and you've been thinking about what you've been thinking about, Mark, you've been having and playing with these issues and considering various angles and stuff like that. You've been thinking about success for what sounds like the better part of a few years at least. The fact that like that is where your mind is, that's where your intentions are. Like, of course you're going to make it, man. Like, of course. I'm not worried about you in the slightest. I'm also not worried about you ever going back to a corporate job or anything, whatever happens in the intervening period between now and like your mega success. Because you're obviously demonstrating the capacity to just like figure things out as you go along. So of course you're going to be successful, Mark. It's not a question to me at all, man. You're never going back to that corporate job and you're going to be able to say whatever the fuck you want for the rest of your life.
Well, I appreciate that, Nick. Let me know how much I owe you for this therapy session because that was really helpful. Honestly, truly, man, I appreciate it. It's funny though because I've noticed this motif in other people's stories, and I feel like there's a lack of it in my life, and I don't want to like glamorize what I'm about to say in any sort of way, but I think it's somewhat of a real thing. I have been so blessed in my life to not have extreme strife. Wasn't a trust fund baby, but wasn't a wasn't I never felt like like you hear people I'm sure like yourself, like you have like a poor story, like we were broke, we were this. Like I never really had that. And do you think that I just hear so many of those people say like they were in that situation and then boom, like 5-year gap, 10-year gap, whatever it is, like that happens. Do you think, I'm not saying it's a prerequisite, but do you think it does something to you that you have even more of a fire because you almost have nothing to lose, or you don't like there's, what do you think around that?
Yeah, definitely. I can think of a couple of major points in my life where like my growth sort of just went up like this, major just disruption in the pattern. The one was that conversation I had with Gurinder. Another one was when I went to the hospital for septic shock. And septic shock is like a 50% like liver die sort of thing. So I was in the emergency room just literally fading to black, being like, holy shit, is this it? And I remember having that thought, like, you haven't really done anything with your life. These moments, I consider them like foundational for sure. I don't think you need these in order to succeed. And there are plenty of people out there that they don't have moments like that. But I think it takes the sort of person that was probably not going to succeed, and then it like puts them on the path where they can, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So like, I don't want to be deterministic or whatever, but I think that there's some people that are substantially more likely to achieve some sort of major amount of success than others, for sure. I mean, if we're just being pragmatic here, right? Whether it's due to the situations of their birth or some circumstance, or I don't know, God's bless them with 7'3" tall basketball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like these inflection points help take somebody that might have been in the former camp and put them in the latter camp, but I don't necessarily think that they're necessary. I think you can, reproduce a lot of it just with like determination and tenacity and ambition, for sure. And it also depends on like the scope of success. It depends on what you consider success. Like, do I want to be like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, $8 billion? Like, I mean, it'd be nice, cool, but like, what goes alongside that? Do I really want to be working like 18 to 20 hours a day and like not have time for my family or anything like that? I don't know. So yeah. I guess there's a lot to take from what I said back there. But essentially, no, I don't necessarily think it's a prerequisite to success. Probably does improve the probability that you'll succeed just because you have something to fall back on, but it's not like the end all be all.
Yeah, I feel you. I do want to be respectful of your time because I think we had an hour locked in, but do you have you have some just couple seconds for some lightning questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay. So like websites and automation, do you have like obviously there's a niche to that, but like there's one specific question. Do you think have you ever had any trouble with converting like old traditional businesses that like maybe don't take to like newer stuff? You know what I mean? Like don't take to AI, don't take to automation. They just want to keep having like Nancy in the office, like do the stuff that she needs to do.
Yeah, for sure. Tons.
Yeah. It's not the greatest, right?
No.
And then the other thing is, what specifically are you doing for MRR, like monthly recurring revenue for that? Like, what's that actually look like? Like, I mean, is there...
For those sorts of businesses or for my own company?
Just in general, like automation, like MRR, like I feel it kind of is like maintenance, but what does that actually entail? In the web world, I think it's totally different.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's a great question. MRR is like the golden egg. It's the only thing that you should really be focusing on after you get your first couple of clients in any industry. I think whether it's websites, automation, AI. Yep. So there's basically 2 recurring service models in the automation space. Well, I guess 3. One, you mentioned maintenance, right?
Yeah.
One basically encapsulates maintenance. They're all variations of like a monthly retainer or a monthly subscription. So, like what I do is I offer a monthly subscription option where you get what's called an unlimited number of projects, which is kind of hacky, but I'll explain that in a second. Basically, I get to be your partner, your fractional COO, and I get to build things out. An unlimited number of requests you can make per month. It just depends on how quick I am at fulfilling them. You get a strategy call weekly. It's a 30 to 45-minute strategy call where I basically go over the big roadmap that I presented to you at the beginning of our business relationship. And once a week, I talk about, hey, here's where we're at. Here's what I think we need to do. Here's some unexpected things that happened last week, and here's how I think we should respond to them. Again, very partner-focused. Not like, I'm not a builder being like, what should I do, Daddy? Please give me the work, right?
Yeah.
I actually have them run me through exactly what they're doing with their business, and I offer them my expertise. Then I do unlimited maintenance on all past projects. So, instead of you having to pay some sort of monthly maintenance fee to me, whether it's some sort of hourly thing, $200 an hour for me to come in and fix something for 3 hours a month, or I don't know, some sort of like flat fee. I just encapsulate all of that within a monthly retainer. And then I offer Slack availability from 12 p.m. till 2 p.m. PT Pacific time every day, where you can reach me within 15 minutes just over Slack. So this is sort of like team training, QA. If anybody has like a random thing that comes up, you know that you got me within that time. The benefit to that is I get to batch that with all of my other clients. And it ends up just being one time period that I just know I need to be by my computer. And basically nobody actually asks you questions after the first couple of weeks anyway. So it's kind of sneaky, but it's just another line item you get on the values and the benefits that you sell to a client. And then finally, what did I cover so far? So that's the retainer option. And then you could do, sorry. The reason why I mentioned there are 3 options is because, so that's what I do, the subscription, right? And then on top of that, you could do a retainer where instead of me offering a limited number of projects, I'm basically just pitching you as my partner, you offer a certain number of hours. So you'd say, I'll work for 50 hours a month or something. So you get all of this, plus you get 50 additional hours a month where I help you with new projects. Obviously, the value there is you get some sort of steady alternative to an hourly rate, which, I don't know if you're doing, you probably sell websites on one-offs, but hourly is a good way for people to make money initially, but it also tends to be like a local maximum where it's like, okay, well, now I'm selling my time at $100 an hour. I can never make more than $100 an hour. So, you usually do that at the beginning and you don't really do that later. But okay, so subscription, then retainer. And then the last one is what I call, it's like shifting your business model entirely. Basically what happens when you're an AI and automation agency is you'll create a bunch of these product offers. So one might be like a cold email system. One might be like a CRM system. One might be, I don't know, some sort of like coaching management system. Okay. And you have all these offers. And then usually my recommendation is you test these against each other to determine which offer works the best. So let's say your cold email offer works the best, right? What you do is you actually change your entire monthly recurring subscription to align to that one product. So instead of just being a general automation agency, what you are now doing basically is you are offering like lead agency services. So cold email system, if that ends up being the thing that just crushes it for you, that, whatever you're doing for recruitment agencies or B2B manufacturing companies, just all cold email all day. What you do is you create basically a retainer offer where all you do is you manage cold email. 10,000 leads per month, full 24/7 lead monitoring and like standard uptimes and under 5-minute responses, qualified booked meetings. I don't know. Basically, you craft a bunch of line items specific to the thing that you've templated out and built. And these are the 3 options for MRR, I would say. I don't recommend doing maintenance. I don't recommend doing like, $500 a month just to make sure a system works. I usually tell everybody that comes to me saying, Nick, somebody wants me to work for them for $500 a month just to maintain some old system. I usually tell them like, hey, why don't you just bundle that into some retainer, charge $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month instead, but then also deliver all this additional value right off the top, right? Because people are going to be a lot more likely to want to do something if it's not just one line item you get as part of your service, but like 50. Yeah. So those are the 3 options if you're offering implementation services. Obviously, for my own business, I make MRR through my communities now as well. I make MRR through makemoneywithmake.com, then also Maker School. I make my own money through these retainer options like I was talking about with my pre-existing clients. And then I'm looking at finding some other ways to generate MRR as well, although they're probably going to be more partnership-based. Like I'm considering building a high-ticket offer where you pay me a flat amount per month, and then I also get a percentage of your revenue, which would incentivize me to obviously advise you and perform and stuff. But yeah, hopefully that's the quick fire answer.
Interesting to see that one evolve. Brother, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time. Can you let my audience know where they can find you, learn more about you, everything you got going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. At just Nick Saraev, first 4 letters of my first name plus my last name. I'm also at Nick Saraev Daily. That's my daily updates channel. In terms of products, if you want to get an automation agency off the ground and go from 0 to 1, definitely check out Maker School. It's all over my YouTube. I'm sure any of your viewers will find it, but we'll leave it there.
Appreciate you, brother. Highly recommend the Daily Updates channel, by the way, if you guys are listening. Learned so much in so little time. Nick's a maestro. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for the great questions. Looking forward to chatting again.
Absolutely.
Rock on, bro.
We'll see you.